Okay, so hello and welcome to the next episode of Cyber Potato, where I'll be showing you how to connect our login form to the API. So, yeah, let's get this going. Okay, we're gonna need a function here that will trigger on submit, and I'm gonna call it as login, and I'll define it here. And okay, let's just test it out. Okay, we don't need this actually. Okay, so okay, I can see a few things. I can see that for some reason my page is reloading and my console log is disappearing. And why is that? Well, historically the forms were used to trigger some kind of action on server. After the data was sent from the form to the sender, the browser required a reload. And this behavior, although not really used so much, is still the default behavior of our application in the browser. But we can prevent the default behavior using even prevent default method. And now reloading, so that's cool. Okay, but we will actually need to trigger the request to login. Oh wait, and I'm gonna create a method. This is gonna be asynchronous method because we're gonna connect to the API. So this has to be awaited and this has to be async. Okay, and I'm gonna say username and password. Okay, so now I don't want to write this method here because I really don't believe it belongs to the component. So let me create new file and I'm gonna call it auth API TS, and here I'm gonna write it down. Yeah. So this is gonna be that. It's gonna be async method, obviously. And I'm going to create an object here that will describe our request. I'm going to call it request config. I'm going to say this is Axios request config type. I need to import this, so let's import Axios all along. Yeah, from Axios. Okay. Do I have access? No, I don't. Okay, let's add it real quick. Okay, should be fine now. So, since we are sending data to the API, the method that we're using is going to be post. URL is going to be, I have the base address of the API stored in variable, in environmental variable. So this is going to be process dot env dot react app API base URL, and the login method is here. Okay, and of course we need to specify the data that we will be sending. So this is going to be data that is here. Okay, but now the linter says that it doesn't know the type that we're trying to specify here, and we kind of need to help him a little bit. So I'm gonna export interface, and interface is often used to describe the shape of the data of the arguments in your functions. So I'm gonna say that username is gonna be string, password is gonna be also of string type, and now I can say that this is this. Okay, nice. And now I'm gonna just say that we will perform a request. Okay, and here, well, I'm only interested in the data part of the response object, but you see, this is the naming conflict, because I'm using data here, okay, and also the Axios is returning the object with data property in it. So I'm going to just rename it here to avoid the conflict, and let's see what happens. Yeah, response, and why this keeps on popping in. Okay, so let's try and look. Okay, this is not defined, but it is now. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so we're back in the game. Yeah, this is the correct URL, and I've sent some data that obviously doesn't exist in our database, because, well, we don't have user with username 123 and I can see in the network tab the information, the error object that we're getting is invalid username password. Okay, and I believe that this is something that we should show our user. Okay, so often there will be a situation where the operation that you'd like to perform simply fails, and it will return or throw an error, and we'd like to have a way to catch this. And thankfully there's this construct called try catch. Okay, we will just do this. Okay, so I'm trying to perform request, and I know it may fail. That's why I can wrap it all. I can wrap this insecure operation and see whether it succeeds or not. Okay, if it fails, I can catch an error and do something with it. So if I have an error here, I will return error object from response data message response. Okay, and I can use that information to show the user that his login is incorrect. He specified wrong data. Okay, so let me just go to the login page, and here I can see if response exists and response has an error key in it. If it does, then set error to response error. Okay, so let me just add it to the state real quick. I'm gonna say I'm gonna use the snippet. Okay, error. Okay, and it may start as an empty string too. And then, so if the request fails, I'm gonna set that information to our state, and then I'm gonna display it to the user simply by saying error length is greater than 0, then just display the error to the user. This and this, and this, and this. Oh yeah, it should be greater than 0. Okay, now it makes sense. So yeah, now if it fails, I get that information to my user. Okay, so this is nice, and we could continue further down the road, but the next step is doing the register page, so I think I'm gonna stop here. I'll see you in the next episode.